It's just human nature, isn't it? We all want control over our jobs, our families, what happens next week. There's this feeling of comfort we think we get from being in the driver's seat. But the flip side is, well, it's this huge weight, right? Suddenly, every success, every little failure, it all feels like it's just on you. It's frankly exhausting.
Okay, let's unpack this. What if there was a better way? A way where you weren't actually meant to carry all that stuff alone?
That's exactly it. That's the heart of what we're digging into today. This deep dive is all about spiritual surrender. It's really a world away from that burden of control you mentioned. Our goal here is to pull out some key insights from various places to really understand how letting go and trusting a higher power can bring this incredible peace, this freedom into your life.
Yeah, we're drawing from some interesting sources today, aren't we? Things like articles on spiritual growth, some powerful verses from the Bible, personal stories too. But we're really going to zero in on one particular practice, the Surrender Novena. The actual texts from it are pretty unique.
They really are. And it makes sense why we crave control, like you said. We think it shields us from the unknown, from pain, from messing up. But the thing is, it rarely delivers on that promise. It mostly just leaves us feeling, well, anxious, frustrated, maybe even more uncertain than when we started. It's tiring. And what's so freeing is this idea that God never actually intended for us to manage everything solo. The invitation is always there. Each day, surrendered to him.
Okay, so surrender. That word can be loaded, can't it? People hear surrender and think, oh, giving up, being passive, just letting things happen to you. How do we get past that? How do we see it as something, I don't know, more active? That's a really crucial distinction. Surrendering to God isn't about throwing your hands up in defeat or just, checking out. It's actually very active choice. You're consciously handing over your worries, your burdens, to a loving Father who genuinely knows what's best. And that act, that decision, brings peace because you start to trust that he's working things out for good, even when the picture looks messy, even when you can't see the how. Like Proverbs 3 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do.
And he will show you which path to take.
Exactly. And that trust, it starts as a decision, maybe a shaky one at first, but then it grows. It becomes more of a habit, a way of leading to God, which actually brings up an interesting point. Is there a difference between, say, surrender and submission? They sound similar.
That's a good question. There are some nuances there, definitely. We can circle back and explore that distinction a bit more later on. But first, let's really dive into the heart of this. The Surrender Novena itself. This isn't just some generic prayer, is it? It has a really specific, powerful origin story. Came from the life, the actual prayers of Father Dolindo Ruotolo. He lived in Naples, Italy, from 1882 to 1970.
That's right. Father Dolindo, he's actually recognized as a servant of God by the Church, which is a step towards sainthood. Quite remarkable. And Padre Pio, who many know, apparently said about him, the whole of paradise is in your soul. Gives you a sense of the man. His name, Dolindo, even means pain. And his life, well, it was full of suffering, humiliation, fulfilling this prophecy that he'd be a martyr, but kind of internally in his heart. And it seems it was through that deep humility, that suffering, that he became this channel. He heard God's words directly. So this novena, it contains words Jesus spoke to him, but the message is timeless. It's for you listening right now.
Wow. That context makes it even more powerful, doesn't it? Thinking these words came through someone so deeply immersed in that surrender. And the core message Jesus gave him is just so direct, so challenging to our usual way of thinking. Why do you confuse yourselves by worrying? Leave the care of your affairs to me and everything will be peaceful. And then this promise. I say to you in truth that every act of true, blind, complete surrender to me produces the effect that you desire and resolves all difficult situations.
It's incredibly potent. And the beauty is also in its simplicity. The actual prayer you repeat is short, direct, powerful. Oh, Jesus, I surrender myself to you. Take care of everything. Just that. You say it 10 times each day for the 9 days of the novena. It becomes this constant refrain, this anchor point, a reminder to keep handing things over.
Okay, so let's really unpack that. What are the core teachings, the sort of day-by-day wisdom that comes through in the novena itself? Directly from those words Jesus spoke to Father Dolindo. This is where we get the how-to, right? Moving from the idea of surrender to, well, actually doing it.
Exactly. It's like a progressive unfolding of what surrender really means in practice. So day one, it starts right off. Stop worrying. Stop confusing yourself. That's the foundation. The key insight is that true, blind, complete surrender, those words are important, is what actually works. It resolves the tough stuff. It's called to just stop the anxious mental gymnastics.
Okay, stop worrying. Easier said than done sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Which is why day 2 immediately clarifies what surrender isn't. It's not sitting there fretting, getting upset, losing hope, or crucially, trying to tell God the solution you want. Instead, it's about, and this is a beautiful image, placidly closing the eyes of the soul, turning away from the mental churning about the problem, and just putting yourself completely in God's care, saying that phrase, you take care of it. He compares it to a child trusting their mother. Total trust.
Like a child just knows mom or dad will handle it without needing to give them instructions. That's a big shift.
It really is. And day 3 builds on this, using the Our Father prayer as a kind of model. Jesus points out, we often pray, but then we immediately try to dictate how God should answer, what the outcome should look like. But really praying, thy will be done, means the same thing as saying, you take care of it. It's letting go of our plan and inviting his omnipotence to step in. And the promise is, he will intervene, even in the hardest situations.
Okay, but what about when you do try to surrender and things seem to get worse? That happens, right? It feels like, hey, I surrendered this. Why is it blowing up?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Novena addresses that head on. That's the focus of days 4 and 5. This is really counterintuitive stuff. Jesus says basically, don't freak out if the problem seems to escalate or if evil appears to be growing.
Seriously, that's tough.
It is. But the instruction is the same. Close your eyes and repeat with faith, thy will be done, you take care of it. He promises he will intervene, even comparing himself to a doctor whose necessary treatments might seem to make the patient worse initially. His loving intervention, he says, is the most powerful medicine. It requires trusting despite appearances.
Trusting despite appearances, okay.
Then, day 6, the focus shifts to our own internal state. Agitation. Jesus identifies this as a huge barrier. Our attempts to figure it all out, to judge the situation, to rely on human solutions or other people, it actually hinders God. He even points out that Satan actively tries to stir up that agitation to pull us away from God's protection. The antidote. Trust only in me, rest in me, surrender everything to me. That internal resting is key.
So that feeling of being agitated, restless, that's actually a signal we've maybe taken the reins back, consciously or not.
Exactly. The sign you're not resting in that surrender. And this links directly to how miracles happen, which comes up on day 7. Jesus states it plainly. I perform miracles in proportion to your full surrender and to your not thinking of yourselves. When we're completely focused on our own efforts or worries, we limit what he can do. But when we're empty, in that space of deepest poverty, as he calls it, that's where he sows graces. Humans don't work miracles. God does through those who surrender. Stop overthinking. Just trust. He promises great, continual, silent miracles.
Silent miracles, interesting. Not necessarily flashy signs, but deep shifts.
Right. And day 8 reinforces this idea of resting. Close your eyes and let yourself be carried by my grace. Turn away from worrying about the present or the future. Just repose. Rest in God's goodness, believing he will act if you truly say you take care of it. He promises consolation, liberation, guidance.
And then day 9, the culmination.
Day 9 really brings it home. Pray, always, ready to surrender. There's great peace and reward in this, even within suffering itself. Suffering can be a grace. Don't be afraid. And then the big takeaway, the line that really sticks. 1,000 prayers cannot equal one single act of surrender. Remember this well. There is no novena more effective than this. It just highlights the incredible power packed into that one act of genuine, total letting go.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's really striking. The consistent message through all 9 days is this radical challenge to our instinct to control, to worry, to figure it all out ourselves. It's a constant invitation to just let go and trust.
Hugely. Absolutely. And that deep trust, that core message of the novena, it resonates with the broader Christian understanding of surrender too. It's not just an isolated practice. Which brings us back to that question you raised earlier, the difference between surrender and submission. How do they fit together?
Right, let's clarify that. It can be a bit confusing. So surrender, you could say, is more of an internal posture. It's about letting go inside, letting go of your attachments, your need to control, your pride even. It's that conscious decision, that leap of faith to accept God's sovereignty, his plan, even if you don't understand it.
Okay, so surrender is internal, then submission.
Submission is more the outward action that flows from that internal surrender. It's the active choice to align your will, your actions with God's known will. It's recognizing his authority and choosing to obey, to follow his guidance in your day-to-day life. So you kind of need both, right? The internal surrender fuels the external submission. They work together. Both are vital for a living faith.
That makes a lot of sense. So thinking practically then, how does someone actually live this out day to day, beyond just praying the novena? How do you make surrender a habit? Well, start small, like a daily decision. Maybe the moment you wake up, before your feet even hit the floor, just a simple thought. Okay, Father, guide me today. I trust you. setting the intention. And then use reminders. Life gets busy, worries pop up, a sticky note on your computer, an alert on your phone, maybe using your lunch break as a specific time to consciously pause and hand over whatever's cropped up.
Little resets throughout the day.
Exactly. Because unexpected things will throw you off.
Mm.
And remembering, it's a continuous practice. You won't suddenly be perfect at surrender. Nobody is. The goal isn't perfection, it's connection. It's building that muscle of trust, day by day, handover by handover. There are also some helpful principles, kind of like steps people find useful. First, really identify what you actually can control and accept your powerlessness over the rest. That honest, I can't, but God can, is huge. It breaks the illusion of total control. Another one, maybe tougher, is making friends with your worst-case scenario. Being willing to say, okay, even if that happens, I'll trust God through it. It loosens the grip of fear.
That sounds challenging.
It is. And related to that is letting go of emotional attachment to one specific outcome. Sometimes we're so fixated on things going exactly as we planned that we block something potentially better God has in mind.
Yeah.
Being open to this or something even better. And crucially, accepting what is right now and trusting God's timing and purpose within it. Even when it feels messy or painful, believing, he can weave it into something good. Often that's about refining us, building character.
So it's not just about getting what we want, but becoming who we're meant to be through the process.
Precisely. And finally, maybe making a formal act of surrender for a specific situation. Just praying explicitly. God, I acknowledge I can't fix this. I give it to you. Please act according to your will and timing.
So when you start living like this, what does it look like? What does it feel like for you, the person trying to practice surrender? It sounds like it leads to incredible freedom, really, regardless of what life throws at you.
It does. You start to notice things shift. There's more hopefulness, even when circumstances are tough. There's a deeper sense of peace that isn't dependent on everything going perfectly. You feel an increased connection with God, more aware of his presence. There's a growing humility that shifts from my will be done to genuinely wanting thy will be done. Patience tends to grow too, because you're not trying to force everything on your own timeline. Your heart softens. And paradoxically, you find your greatest strength, your deepest peace, comes from that place of utter dependence on God.
So we've really dug into this idea of spiritual surrender today, haven't we? Especially through the lens of Father Dolindo's powerful Surrender Novena. We've seen that letting go isn't about weakness or giving up. It's actually this really courageous, hope-filled act, an act that opens the door for God's peace, his wisdom, his power to work in our lives. It's about consistent, intentional trust in his will and his timing.
It truly is. It's a practice, a journey.
So here's something to think about. Maybe mull over after listening. If that line from the novena is true, 1,000 prayers cannot equal one single act of surrender. What's one thing? What's one area in your life? Maybe one worry you keep circling back to, one desire you're clinging tightly to, maybe even a hidden idol. What's one thing you'd be willing to truly, completely hand over to God today? And just imagine, what kind of peace or what unexpected blessing might that single act of surrender unlock for you?
And remember, as you walk this path, it's not about getting it perfect every time. It's about the relationship, about growing in trust. His way really is always better, and his grace is always, always enough.
God's grace is always enough. I hope you enjoyed listening to Aidan and Ai-leen discuss spiritual surrender, particularly as defined in the Surrender Novena, given to us by Don Dolindo, straight from the heart of Jesus. Arrivederci till next time. Jesus, I surrender everything to you. You take over. Take care of everything.